Berlin has never seen a summer as hot as this. Earth is boiling, and as the air above pavements shimmer and tremble, people shed skin from dehydration. As her sister and her best friend, Island try to go through the unbearable weather with the help of social media and the ordinary activities of the young people, Nora finds no satisfaction in being with them. Like a fish in a tank, she longs to escape the hot waters inside. In the first scene, they are on a rooftop, away from the boiling streets, but Nora fails to connect with them. She looks above the foggy sky, watching nothing in particular, as the girls next to her quarrel over some deleted photo. They go down in their apartment, and the cascade of unending dirty jokes fills the kitchen as they try to find consumable food. Nora is both confused and awkward when her friends eat some with no calories. Once it's her turn, she refuses to put it into her mouth, but they plunge her into the bathtub and force her to consume it. As the sun sets and shady streets are relieved from the heat, they roam the city. Nora isn't sure why she spends her time like this. Clearly, she's nothing like them, but her identity is so far covered with a thick layer of mist, so she follows them around, not to be ostracized. They meet with Jules' classmates, and as the kids make out, smoke, laugh, curse, and tell the dirtiest jokes and play a game called Whack-A-Hand, the indifferent and pitiable look remains unchanged on Nora's face. Finally, it's her turn to join the game. The boy in front of him, still too young and brainless to control his strength, hits Nora's hand repeatedly 12 times. It's a part of the game, however, as the kids around taunt and shout at the boy. He loses his mind. The energy around the room swallows him whole, and his fist lands on Nora's hand with too much velocity. Nora squirms and takes her searing hand away. The pain is so cruel her eyes start to tear up, as the only thing the boy can do is apologize mindlessly. And so, they fetch some ice and go to a hospital to fix her broken arm in place. In the following scene, after the usual hygiene routine, she goes to bed and finds her sister on the bed, saying that one of her caterpillars has escaped. Nora gets her flashlight and takes it out of her sister's bed. Once they were kids, they both liked growing caterpillars, but as it would seem, they grew apart as time went on. And as Nora returns the huge green caterpillar to the breeding jar, her sister threatens to kill another one that manages to escape. That night, she struggles to sleep. She's too hungry to drift into dreams. Jewel feels the same. The cotton balls that they ate earlier in the day meant nothing to their bellies. So, they go out to meet their mom at a bar. Once they arrive, the mother seems happy to see her daughters at that time in their pajamas. The place is almost empty. They sit down at the bar, and after Jewel tells her that they have nothing to eat, she starts making jokes, teasing and mocking her daughter. They both seem to enjoy each other's company, but once the mother turns to Nora and tries to hug her, she screams out in pain. Her hand is throbbing as her mother caresses it and asks what happened. But finally, she still manages to lighten the mood by saying that the blue color on her hand suits her. Nora goes to the school the next day. She should be on a school trip today and the several days to come. However, because of her arm, she is unable to go. Therefore, she asks to be with her sister at her class. Once she is taken there, however, a mildly unpleasant expression lands on Jewel's face. Mrs. Novak, a delightful lady, introduces her to the class. The boy who broke her arm, a boyfriend to Island, is sitting right next to Jewel. As Nora takes her seat behind her, she turns around and asks her wickedly not to embarrass her. Meanwhile, the class continues. Mrs. Novak gives them an assignment to create an abstract art depicting their inner self, a task that might prove to be overly complicated for such kids as Jewel's friends. They spend that afternoon in the only bearable way, swimming in a pool. Playing with an especially attractive friend of Jewel, Nora accidentally undoes her bra and stands awkwardly in a place as her sister ties it back. It almost seems like she enjoyed messing around with her for different reasons, the reasons she can't quite comprehend yet. However, an overwhelming and mysterious force drives her back to the changing room to extinguish the fires that were set while swimming in a pool. In the following scene, the sisters bring a present to their mother who has a birthday. As they enter a dark room, pull away the curtains, and wake their hungover mother, we understand that the latter might have a problem with drinking. For a while, the only thing that she minds is the light that hurts her eyes. The girls have her old bicycle pumped and repaired and the birthday breakfast ready in the kitchen. But the only thing their mother forces herself to say is, "Nice." So, they make their way into the kitchen, and as Jewel feeds the doves, Nora takes the letter she finds on the table and reads it with Jewel. It's from Twiggy, a woman that seems to be the only person their mother considers worthy to spend her time with. This is the scarce moment when the sisters understand each other. They both lack love and attention from their mother, who prefers to direct her warmth towards some other woman. That day at school, she watches as Jewel's classmates struggle to go through the balancing exercise. Finally, it's her turn, and as she takes the teacher's hands and starts to take steps, she's terribly aware of the mocking eyes fixated on them. She knows the culture of the youth around her. All they long to see is something to mock and make fun of. That is the primary source of their fun. So, she's extremely anxious not to lose her balance. However, in the end, the balance isn't the thing that embarrasses her. She hears the room buzzing with sarcastic and disgusted noises, and all the mocking gazes sting at her nonstop as she tries her best to stay calm. but she knows something is wrong. Finally, she lands on her feet and realizes what they all were looking at. It's the redness on her thighs. Embarrassed, she rushes to the bathroom to take care of herself. She will never be able to look her sister in the eyes, and the whole school will talk about her for a long time. Suddenly, a girl who was in the room, named Romy, comes in and asks her to open the door with a soft voice. She's Jules' classmate. However, it seems like she's not part of their loud group. She offers Nora help and rinses her jeans. Finally, she enters the cabin, hangs the wet jeans over the little window, and takes a cigarette stored in her bra. While this happens, Nora stays quiet and shifts from being embarrassed to being surprised. A girl that isn't even close with her willingly helps her when she needs it the most. And so, Nora looks at her with eyes full of gratitude and overwhelming sympathy as she draws on her cigarette, hands it to her, and leaves. Nora is left abashed and struck. The only thing she can do is smile uncontrollably. The effect of that strange connection follows her to the changing room and protects her from the judgmental atmosphere inside. She tries to figure out how to avoid such occasions in the future that night and walks inside the bedroom. Jules suddenly decides to take off the mask of an embarrassed and cruel sister and offers her help. She seems ashamed of her reaction back in school. Nora tells her that she doesn't need it. However, she wakes up at night terrified and finds bloodstain on her bedclothes. The end of July is near, and the blood moon hangs above Berlin. It's the time of the longest lunar eclipse of the 21st century. The social struggles and newly raised womanly problems entwine within each other for Nora as time goes on. In the following scene, she puts sunscreen on her friend's back while Jewel lies beside them. Suddenly, a boy that they both like arrives, and with him Romy. The girls start gossiping. As they say, Romy is repeating 2 years, and with voices full of contempt they comment on the things she does nearby. However, the sight of her brings light to Nora's face. Afterward, walking along the pool, Nora looks for Romy again. The girl has domesticated her heart. The feeling that comes like a tide every time she sees that girl is too strange for her. So that night she asks Jewel if she feels the same way toward Island that he feels toward the boy he likes. But she only responds that it's completely different, deepening Nora's confusion. In the following scene, the teacher starts a discussion about having a baby, and disagreement between the kids from different cultures arises. Finally, the teacher offers a volunteer to try and simulate being a mother or a father. Jewel raises her hand and a boy follows her lead as the whole class teases him. They all know that he wants to impress Jewel. Moving forward, as Nora and her sister make their way toward home, Nora tries to put some sense into her sister, saying that having a baby isn't a good idea, but to no avail. During dinner time, their mother starts taking off her youth and the way she would get over the top at parties, wearing the unicorn costume that still is in her closet. Nora seems to like the idea of wearing it herself, but before her mother can say more, Jewel brings out the baby doll she took from class. The mother frowns. She's too young to be thinking about raising a child, but stubborn Jewel still thinks that her family will help her out. As the colorful caterpillars quietly go about their clumsy lives inside Nora's jars, the two sisters take care of the baby simulator. The next day she notices Romy on the train, reading a book, but before she can gather up the courage to approach her, the girl leaves. Her legs start trickling and an unfamiliar uneasiness fills her insides out of nowhere. She knows that she can't stay here, she must follow her, and now, before the doors close, she'll never forgive herself if she remains still here. So, Nora leaps up and bolts toward the doors. She manages to get out just in time before the doors shut. Romy's trail brings her to strange gates. She looks inside and sees her, but a dog notices her first. It runs toward her barking and Romy comes after it, silencing the dog. She invites her inside, offering to cut the tips of her hair. It is a peaceful and beautiful place, an outdoor cafe filled with favorable people. Sunshine lights Nora's face as she looks at Ruby, swinging on a rocking chair. Later that day, her teacher talks to her in private, asking whether there is something that she wants to share. After a brief silence, Nora confesses her attitude toward girls, how she likes being close to them differently. The teacher maintains the sweetness in her expression and her tone, telling her that she's only 14, and that the feelings burning inside her will settle down in years to come. Eventually, she might look back and realize that everything has changed. Naturally, Nora doesn't think so, but she still nods her head in agreement and leaves politely. She spends the rest of the afternoon with Island and Jewel. Sitting in front of a sandy playground, Island suddenly notices a needle pointing up from the sand. And as she rushes toward the little kid, Nora takes it out and dumps it with her blue arm immobilizer. She doesn't need it anymore. In the following scene, the kids in Jewel's class are making the presentations of their assignments. But as one kid raps in front of the class, there's nothing abstract about it. The next one to present his work is Island's boyfriend. He takes his favorite trainer and holds it so that everybody can see it. He laces it tight at first and then loosens it up, demonstrating his inner attitude. Once the clapping and shouting are done, the teacher invites Nora to be the last one. What she prepared is more performance, rather than presentation. She brings out a moth inside a cube and lights it up from above. The shadow of the insect falls on the wall, and as the moth longs for the light, Nora recites a poem. She tells the tale of a butterfly, its aspiration toward the sun, and therefore, its inevitable death. The whole room sinks into deep silence until she's done and everyone claps in amazement. Romy seems to be especially mesmerized by her performance. The teacher says that there's time for one more, so she is the one that goes next. On a small stage, she stands while a series of explosions are shown behind her. Space Oddity is playing, and after the time is over and the whole room empties, Nora remains in her seat, still looking at the explosions, astounded by how this is exactly how she feels. Emotions and feelings are exploding in her mind whenever she catches a glimpse of Romy, and living with those explosions, she feels like an alien, wandering across an uninhabited galaxy. That afternoon, as she's resting in front of the pool with her friends, she receives a message from Romy, and tries her best to hide the happiness on her face when she reads that she's invited to swim with her that night. It's a date. She and her sister get back home in the evening. The doll is crying uncontrollably, and we see Jewel losing her patience for the first time. Trying to silence the baby simulator, she covers it with a pillow and pushes it down, until she starts to sob. She's not ready to raise a child, but that cannot be the only reason for this emotional outburst. She says that their mother didn't take care of it, and we understand that the only reason she got the doll was to push her mother to quit drinking. Sadly, she failed miserably. Flashing through time, we see Nora, dressed and prepared for her date. When she sees Ruby, she realizes in delight how beautiful the night ahead is going to be. But soon she realizes that the dream is pointless and the happiness is flushed down from her face. Two boys come after Romy. It's better than nothing though. And so, they run toward the pool and swim. She feels free, diving in cool waters, but the fun doesn't continue for long. Night Watchman comes out with his barking dog and comes after them. The boys and the girls run in different directions, and so, after they escape, Romy invites her to stay over at her house. Nora realizes that she falsely fell in despair. Everything turned out in her favor. After a brief and ordinary small talk, Romy's mother looks inside. She's the complete opposite of her daughter, stern and resolved. She's surprised by Nora's politeness, since all the other friends that her daughter brings are as disorderly as her. After she closes the door behind her, Romy and goes to sleep. Nora joins her, but they are not ready to sleep yet. Uneasy, Romy turns back to her and promises to reveal a secret to her, but only if she gets one in return. She had a sister once, a girl who starved herself to death and withered away. Her mother changed professions and became a paramedic to deal with her daughter's terrible passing, but her father decided to avoid facing it and flew to Brazil. It's all too much to comprehend in seconds, but before Nora can realize what she's hearing, Romy asks her to say her secret in return. The silence falls. Nora says that she doesn't know what to say, but her gaze seems to penetrate her skin and uncover her feelings. Romy looks at her with eyes that say she knows her thoughts. Nora looks up and begins. She saw something when she was swimming tonight, a floating object filled with light, dancing in the depth of water. It was beautiful, but once she took it out over the surface, it turned out to be a mere plastic bag. What if everything that once seems beautiful turns out to be ordinary later? The thought brings tears to her eyes and cracks her voice. Silence falls again, and finally, Romy assures her that it's not the case with everything, underlying that the beauty of this moment will remain untouched till the end of times, swimming in the oceans of their memory. She rubs her forehead gently, and for a while, it's silent again until Nora gets closer and kisses her gently. Only once and very briefly, but it is enough. The next day, underneath the overcast sky, they swim in the lake. The caterpillar is becoming a butterfly. They spend the whole day together, cooling off the heat outside and inside their bodies. At the lake, at the outdoor cafe, and on the rooftops, they enjoy each other's company. Out of nowhere, Romy attempts to read her fortune from her palm, but abruptly Nora makes her stop. Jewel thinks that her palm speaks of her untimely death, but Romy takes it anyway and tells her that she can only see a new beginning. They spend the last of the day dancing and setting themselves free on the pride match, alongside the people as eager as them to express love. And at night, Nora prepares to go to the party thrown by Island. We see her take out the unicorn costume from her mother's wardrobe. And so, dressed as a creature of another world, she arrives there. Right away, the boy that swam with her that night comes up to her and brings her outside to show her something crazy. They look over the balcony and see a fox, a sign that is not as magnificent as delivered. And as the boy holds her head, we understand the real reason why he brought her outside. He attempts to kiss her, and for a moment, their lips touch. Nora neither responds nor refuses. She remains unmoving until the boy pulls away. For a second, awkward silence falls, until he turns away and asks her whether she likes him or not. There's a slight glimpse of anger in his tone. However, when Nora confesses that she's in love with someone else, curiosity changes to anger. Nora isn't sure whether to reveal her secret or not. He might tell everybody else and they might reject her, ostracize her. But she's wearing the unicorn costume for a reason. Today is the day to let herself be free and expressive, so she tells him she's in love with Romy. She puts her trust in the world, and the world returns the favor. The boy is taken aback a little at first, but later he even says that it's cool, until he leaves her alone on the balcony. Once she gets inside, the raging party consumes her instantly. People screaming, drinking, and dancing. The whole room swims in blue neon light. She finds her way between arms and faces and finally comes across a dreadful picture beyond her imagination. Romy is sitting on the floor with David, the boy Jewel likes a lot, and makes out with him passionately. Nora freezes in place, failing to look away. 100 arrows come hissing at her from where they are kissing and find her skin to pierce and burn. Before she can regain herself, someone comes by and snatches the colorful horn from her hair in a brisk and mocking motion. The whole idea of being an expressive unicorn proved to be a drastic failure. Nora turns away and starts walking toward the door. But before she reaches the entrance, Island stops her and tells her that Jewel is in the bathroom, terribly intoxicated, and she needs care. The sight of David and that perverse girl made her drink too much. Nora bolts toward the bathroom and finds her sister, fallen miserably on the floor. She puts her in the tub and helps her out. Despite all the differences, she realizes that Jewel is the person closest to her. She puts her into the new clothes and the two spend the rest of the night outside the party, sitting alone in silence. In the morning, the mother helps her hangover too. Naturally, the girl swears never to drink that much. Flashing through time, it's already afternoon. Jewel and Island are sitting in the living room together when Nora joins them. For a while, they are watching something in silence until the two nod to each other, deciding something in their nonverbal language. Then they turn to Nora and ask her to stop hanging out with Romy. Jewel will never be able to look into her eyes if she knows that her sister is friends with a girl like that. So they put forward a choice for her. At first, Nora attempts to protect her lover, but eventually, she makes her decision, agreeing with them silently. Later that day, while the youth around her dance and go crazy, Nora remains indifferent just like in the beginning of the film. She sees her sister and Island dance together, getting closer and closer until their lips touch. In the following scene, Nora is smoking outside on the balcony, while inside the party buzzes on. To her surprise, she sees Jewel again, now making out with another boy. She watches her sister in disapproval as their eyes meet. She spends the rest of the evening alone, and the bottle of alcohol is her only companion. She drifts into sleep on the balcony and wakes up in the morning. Once she gets inside her room, she discovers her caterpillar jar broken on the floor. The caterpillar itself is gone. She tries searching for it for a while, but to no avail. The house is empty and hollow. All Nora can do is watch the photos of Romy on her phone and cry to herself till the last drop of a tear leaves her eyelids. But tears often prove to be soothers, extinguishers of the biggest and fiercest of fires. She exits her apartment and cycles to the pool. In the following scene, she is sitting alone, watching a kite as it floats in the sky above. Suddenly, Romy appears right in front of her from the depths of the pool. She makes a joke, but Nora's face remains still. She has already seen something like this in her life, a beautiful object that proved to be a plastic bag, once it came out of the surface. Nora is looking at Romy and sees the same thing. She doesn't hate her though, no one can hate a thing for being itself. And so, after Romy comes out of the pool to compliment her and soothe her hair, Nora says no word and dives into the water. She gets back home on foot, takes a bath, and once she opens her wardrobe, an enormous butterfly flies out, circles around the room, and lands on her arm. A caterpillar has become a magnificent moth. The cocoon has been broken.